Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Hour, a show I do twice a week where I throw a little chaos into Star Trek and review a random episode. Today's episode is Voyager, Season 4, Episode 17, Retrospect. So the teaser starts off with Voyager blowing up a targeting buoy, and then in the interior of the ship, there's a guy and I guess I should say that they're orbiting a alien planet, and there's an alien guy, and he's basically trying to sell them a cannon, some sort of cannon. And that's me using some sort of, not the show. I guess it's just one of those things. It's like easier to just say that than I don't remember what kind of canon they said. So anyway, uh, so they've Janeway is like trying to negotiate like what they're gonna trade because they don't have money, as we know. And she initially wants to give him some star charts, but he says that there's anomalies. An anomaly could happen and it could change the star chart at any moment, and they're basically worthless. And then he wants the technology, the astrometric lab technology, and she says that she can't give him that, and it wouldn't be compatible with his ship anyway. So then they settle on isolinear chips, which are compatible or can be made compatible, and then he agrees with whatever number they came up with. I think it was like 100 or something like that. And then Janeway tells Chakotay to assign Seven this project of like installing the cannon and stuff. So he goes to Astrometrics Lab. I'm getting better at saying that. At first it was Atromech, which R2D2 is an Atromech droid. But he goes to Chakotay goes to C7, and she's working on some message that Starfleet had sent and that needed to be like decoded or something. And she initially doesn't want to do this project, and he reminds her that she had lost the trust of the captain, and that she needs to gain it back. And this is after the teaser. So the teaser was the. Oh wait, no, it's not. So then, so she reports to engineering, and B'Elanna's there, and the guy's there, and she's like reconfiguring the computer and stuff to make it more efficient, because that's what Seven likes to do. And he says she's doing it all wrong, and he like tries to push her out of the way, and she like just straight up punches him in the nose. And then so that's the end of the teaser. So then he's in sick bay, and the doctor's treating him, and his nose is broke. And the doctor says that it'll be, fixed in no time. And then and then they're questioning him and stuff like that, and he's like, why aren't you questioning your crew member? And Janeway says, oh, believe me, I will. And so Seven reports to Janeway's ready room, and she says that locking you in the brig won't work. And this is like a reoccurring thing, of her having to be disciplined. and she says that traditional disciplinary actions don't work. And so then Seven is talking to the doctor, and he's examining her, and he has the tricorder thing pointed to her head, and she kind of twitches and recalls and doesn't like it. And then he puts her on the bed, the bio bed, and that thing, you've seen it in TNG and Deep Space Nine. It's like this thing. It looks like a. If you ever had a CAT scan, which I've had, they're horrible because you got to sit in this tube, and it just thumps, and thump, 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 thump. And you can't have like any metal, so you can't listen to music. So, that would at least. And you're surround. I mean, it's nerve wracking to say the least. So it kind of reminds me of that, but like a smaller condensed version that only covers like your chest or whatever. And I guess that's what it's sort of supposed to be, but it does more things. So she's getting antsy and tells the doctor to let her out of this thing. She starts having these flashbacks of like somebody examining, doing stuff to her and like pointing a thing at her head that looks like those little guns for not a caulking gun, but like what is it, super glue gun or whatever. It kind of looks like that, but it's all black. And who knows? They may have just found one and painted it black and doctored it up, and then put lights on it. So she's like having these flashbacks, and she doesn't know why. And she's talking to the doctor about it, and he says that she has like suppressed memories, and that and he's like talking to Janeway about it, and they decide to like see if they can bring back her memories. So I mean, it starts off, it's kind of like when, well, I mean, YouTube is not going to do anything because I'm a small channel. I don't even have the ability to make money off of this channel. So I could say grape, but we'll call it. It's akin to like when people talk about alien abductions, not inductions, and how they have to have their memory, usually they get hypnotized or whatever. I mean, if you believe what they're saying. So she's kind of like recalling her memory. So they go to the cargo bay where she's in her alcove because that's a comfortable spot for her, and that's where the doctor feels like she would be the most comfortable. And he's asking her questions to get her to kind of recall her memory, and basically what she's seeing is she's being she's being put on a bed and strapped down with like something, and it's the weapons guy, and he has a female partner who I don't even remember if she said his name or whatever. And then there's another alien of the same species in another bed, but he's passed out. And she says that that they were testing weapons on the surface of the planet, And Tom was there, and she was there to assess the accuracy and stuff like that. And he took her into a lab, um, because Tom fires a weapon, and she says that it's like 70% accurate. It's like accurate but crude, and he wants to take her to the lab to kind of adjust the weapon and show her a few more things. And she tells the doctor that he had fired on her, and then that's when they put her in the bed. So it didn't kill her, it just stunned her, I guess. And he takes that super glue gun thing that I was talking about, takes off her ocular node, and extracts like nanites, the nanoprobes, the Borg nanoprobes, and extracts her. So the things that come out of their fingers, the Borg, and then injects into you, so you can be assimilated. Those nanoprobes, he takes them out of her fingers, and then puts them into the alien that's on the other bed, and assimilates him. And like that thing that's on her cheek, like pops out. I wish I had like a technical manual for all this stuff, and I could just tell you what it is, or just look it up before I do the show. That would be the smart thing to do, but I usually don't do that. I just watch the episode, take my notes, and then I have about an hour, or depending on the time, to just watch. Well, right now I'm watching horror movies on Pluto TV. So if you have Pluto TV, there's 3 or 4 different channels with like horror movies playing. If you want to do like a marathon like I'm doing. So then I lost my place. So then he lied and said that the weapon accidentally went off, and she had burned her hand, so he used a thermal generator to and the guy's name is Coven. I wrote it down like you would spell like a coven of witches. Don't know if that's accurate. Again, if I would just look this shit up beforehand, I would be able to tell you this. Maybe I should work on that. I kind of like the live aspect. I was listening to Nerdrotic earlier today, and he's talking about editing and blah, blah, blah. And people, my stepbrother, I talked about doing this show when I first started. And I was like, nah, I don't want to edit it. I just want it to be live and let the mistakes fly. And that just, because it's, because I looked back at every episode, and it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny listening to it. And I don't know how to do any of that stuff, and I don't want to take the time to do it. I just want to have my live stuff, and if I mess up, I mess up, and just roll with it. But that's why I'm doing it the way I am. So the doctor informs Janeway, and basically, like I said, it's like at this point in the episode, it's like a grape case. And the doctor's like trying to be encouraging to Seven, and basically he's not being objective, shall we say. And they are being, Janeway and Tuvok are trying to be more objective and say, look, we believe Seven, but we can't just rush to judgment and have this guy be convicted of assault or whatever, and we have to find hard evidence. It can't just be her word and we just go in and whatever. So Janeway talks to Coven and wants to examine his ship. See, that would have been edited out where I said zip instead of ship. I don't want to take the time to do all that crap because how many times do I mess up words and stuff like that? And you've seen Gary, reading super chats. I'm probably just as bad. But he says no initially, and then she says, "Well, I can call the authorities. Get the law down here." And he doesn't want them involved, so she says, "Do you agree to our investigation?" And he says, "Well, basically, it looks like I have no choice." So Tuvok naturally is well, not only is he the security officer, but he's Vulcan, so it's logical, I guess pun intended, that he would be the one to conduct the investigation. So he's talking with Coven, questioning him about different things, and Tuvok wants to get the local magistrate involved. And Coven says that, like, in their culture, they're very trade oriented, or they're kind of like Ferengis. They don't look like them, but they similar type culture. Sorry. And so, like, any hint of wrongdoing, even if it was proven to be not wrongdoing, would just ruin their business, kind of like nowadays, if somebody, like James Gunn, he tweeted something 10 years ago, and then Marvel got rid of him. Now he came back and whatnot, but that's almost where we're at in our culture, and there's a lot of things. Watching this, I thought about the Me Too movement and how it believe all women, and how people were being like thrown under the bus left and right with just the accusation. At least in here now on Discovery. Now Discovery came out at the height of that shit, and they I don't remember if they did an episode like that. I don't think they did. But if those writers would probably do that, they wouldn't even talk about the other side and how the accused has a right to defend themselves and stuff like that, and it also reminded me of the Drumhead, which is a great episode. And this is not the greatest episode, but it's okay. But it was the great episode of TNG, where the Romulan guy, or half, I guess he's like quarter Romulan Garrett, or something like that, and he was accused of something just because he had that Romulan blood, and it was from Admiral Satine or whatever her name was, or anyway, that's a great episode. Hopefully I'll get to it. Anyway, the doctor's talking, so the guy agrees, and Tuvok, he also agrees because he says Tuvok seems like a, upstanding guy that he can trust. So he agrees to bring the magistrate in, and they go down to the lab. But anyway, the doctor's talking to Seven, about her feelings, and at first she doesn't understand the concept of being abused like that. So somebody doing something without your consent, and he kind of explains it to her, and then now she's like, oh, I feel angry, and I want to get this guy, and he needs to pay. And the doctor's like, he will pay, and again, not being objective. He's not saying, hey, Seven, we gotta do this the right way. We can't just, he I guess he didn't read that speech from Picard when Drumhead happened. I guess he didn't read the captain's log or whatever, or didn't get that ethics class at Starfleet or Academy. I don't know. We're gonna Starfleet Academy. You think they're gonna have any type of ethics lessons in that show? No, they're gonna have a bunch of drama, high school shit. There's not gonna be like when Wesley went to Starfleet Academy and had to learn to overcome his fears and stuff like that. You're not gonna see that. You're not gonna see that. You're not gonna see You might see training like piloting, just because it's action oriented. Probably see that. We may see one simulation. The rest is going to be outside of the classroom drama, nonsense, CW crap. They're not going to talk about ethics when conducting a first contact or something like that. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get actual Star Trek. I would be down with an Academy series if it was set, like if it was 30 years ago, and it was set like in that period, say between Star Trek 6 and if it was like what's her name from the Enterprise C, and maybe you had you had her and a group of her friends or something, and in that era, I would be down with something like that, but not with these writers. So doctor's, talking about her feelings, and she's angry and she wants revenge, but she doesn't say that. So back in the lab, they find nanoprobes that have regenerated, and they think that wouldn't happen if he hadn't extracted them. They wouldn't be regenerating, and they find DNA and cellular residue that corresponds with Seven and her DNA. So the magistrate, basically, he has enough evidence to detain this guy. But the guy freaks out, and he's like, "You said you'd be impartial," and he has a phaser, and he has a thing in his hand, and he beams away to his ship. And his ship doesn't have, they say that it doesn't have warp capability. And Janeway says, Plata, well, ask the magistrate if he wants them to intercept him, and he says yes. So they find him, his ship, and then the ship like blasts something out, and he disappears. The ship disappears, and Harry says that it was like a photonic pulse. Again, I would, if I had done more research, I would have been able to tell you what exactly that is. I'm guessing a pulse of photons, right? And so they're back at the lab, and or no, they're back on the ship, I think. And Janeway's talking to Tuvok, and she's saying, a lot of this evidence is like inconclusive. It's not pointing to one thing or another. And Tuvok agrees and says a lot of it's kind of coincidental because if Seven was in the lab and touching things, her DNA would be there anyway. And so they want to do an experiment to recreate the blast that the guy says happened. Like the weapon went off accidentally. And so they, but they go to Seven, and the doctor's, being protective of her and saying, that, are you sure about this? And, and Tuvok says it's not going to hurt. We just want to recreate it and see what happens with the nanoprobes. So they take her hand and do the thing. And then they have like one of those little micro slide things that you put under a microscope. And they have a microscope. And they look at it, and it turns out that the nanoprobes do regenerate. So that tells them that the guy's probably innocent, and that they say that most of the evidence is pointing towards his story and not Seven's. And then Seven's like pissed off, and she's like, no, that's not, And then they say that, well, this, you did a lot of things with the Borg, and that this could be suppressed Borg memories coming back, not what happened with him. And then the doctor concludes, yes, he agrees that, that he admittedly didn't have enough information about her physiology and stuff to really definitively say one thing. So they try to catch up with Coven and chase down his ship and try to hail him to let him know that they believe that he's telling the truth, that he's innocent. And they hail him, and they say what they found, and he doesn't believe them and starts setting off more of those pulses, and the shields go down, and he's basically doing a lot of damage to Voyager. And Janeway tells Harry to back off, or Tom to back off, and give him some space. And the magistrate is like, you need to fire on that ship. And Janeway's like, no, we've done enough damage. We need to try to get to him. And Janeway hails them again with the open channels and tries to get him to stop doing what he's doing, and he's freaking out, and he's not doing it. And the pulses are doing damage to his ship as well. And he does it a few more times, and then the ship blows up. And they're all kind of like, oops. And then Janeway's, kind of looks at Seven, doesn't say anything, and the doctor's got a look on his face like he feels bad about the situation. So then Seven comes to sickbay for weekly. She has a weekly exam, and he says that she's all good, and Seven says, "Well, I don't feel good," and they talk about how, you know, whenever whenever you feel guilty about something, more about he's explaining her feelings to her, and she feels guilty, that the guy would basically kill himself when he was right. And then the doctor goes to Janeway, and once he's isolated all his subroutines and wants to be placed back into the wearer from the first episode when he was just a emergency doctor, and that he'd still be able to perform his duties, but wouldn't have the emotions and stuff like that. And Janeway denies and says that, he's like, well, what if I make this mistake again? I lost my objectivity, and, and she says, well, hopefully this will be a lesson for you so that you don't make this mistake again. And so I thought it was a decent episode, I gave it a 6 out of 10. Maybe it could be pushed for a 6.5. There's some ethics involved. Like I said, if this was Discovery, it'd probably be completely different. It reminded me of the Drumhead. It brought forth good questions and did what Star Trek does good is, and why we love it, is that it allows the audience to kind of think and come up with their own conclusions and stuff. So I'd say, it's not like the greatest episode, but it didn't feel like filler either. And we're getting towards the end of the season, so a lot of times there is filler there. Well, let's see what people were saying out in the chat. And who's here? I hate that there's a delay. There's nothing I can do about it. But DJ Plays Nice is here and says hello. Rip Ace Freely, yeah. That sucks. He says, yes, but don't sweat it. I don't know what I'm sweating. Michelle Ferry says, I enjoy your way of doing this. It's fun to listen to you and hear you talk about different Trek episodes. Well, I'm great. I'm glad. I'm glad you like it, Michelle. This is not a professional, as AJ from the Y-Files says, this is not a professional operation. Although he's pretty professional. So glad to see DJ Play Nice and Michelle Ferry. I'm glad you guys enjoy it, guys and gals enjoy it. And so now we're going to go to the portion of the show where I pick Fate picks. I keep doing that. Fate picks the episode. And I completely closed out I completely closed that out because every time I open it back up, it seems to automatically either I mess up with my thumb or it automatically goes to a random episode, and I don't want to keep doing that. So I'm just going to close it out every time and reopen it. So I'm reopening it. It sits at Enterprise First Flight, which is a great episode, but we're not going to do that, are we? Because that would not be randomizing. So we're going to randomize it. The universe wants me to just review this Voyager. So Voyager Season 5, Episode 20, Think Tank. And I'm pretty familiar with that one. That's the one with that's the one with Jason Alexander. So that's episode 5. What did I say? 20. Season 5, episode 20. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I just want to let people know that Halloween night I will be doing this stream at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm just going to review a few horror movies. I don't know how long I'm going to stream. Maybe an hour. I don't know. I got to pick the movies first of all, and then write my notes and figure out what I want to say. But hopefully people can come out and enjoy the night, at least for an hour. I just want to thank DJ Play Nice and Michelle Ferry for coming out. I want to thank anybody that's lurking and anybody that watches this in the future. And I see that my good friend Admiral Teague is streaming right now. So I'm going to hop on over there and join his... I'm not going to be on the stream, but I'm going to join the chat and say hello. And probably send a poop emoji. So if anybody else wants to go over there, have at it. Have a good night, everyone.